Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Max Q What If. So if you've been following along with us, we have been filming a variety of different topics with amazing people that we know, and their expertise is off the charts. And we've been asking questions. What if you don't have, or what if you don't know? And then these awesome professionals can kind of step in and help fill that gap. Meant to be short and sweet, so I hope you have time for this one. It's going to be a good one. We have Heidi with us today. I'm going to let my fabulous co-host Anne introduce her. So ladies, take it away.
Welcome, Heidi. I'm so glad you're here. I've known Heidi for a really long time. She's been in HR for, she says decades. I'm going to just say a decade or two. And we have watched each other's careers and bumped into each other all along the way and become personal friends since then. Anyway, Heidi's been in tech and in healthcare, and she is currently working at All Things HR, and she does HR consulting for small, medium, and mid-sized companies. Heidi, what if a startup doesn't have any idea what to do about HR? They have no HR experience, they have no HR knowledge. What if?
What if? Thanks, Anne. That's a great question. And I would say that the majority of startups do not have an HR department or very, if any, very deep, certainly HR knowledge. So there are resources to help you. There are lots of HR consulting firms, such as a firm I work with, who can help you navigate all the complexities of HR. And I'd have to say that HR is far more complex than it used to be. So you need some professional help from an HR professional. I would also recommend that when you're putting together your business planning for your startup, that you include some budget for employment law attorney counsel, as well as dealing or working with an HR consultant who can help you set up your HR department, set up your payroll, talk about what, how you hire and onboard employees and what the options are for that. So you're not alone. There are people out there that can help you and lend their expertise to you.
And where do you start? Right? So you have a company, maybe you have like 3 friends and you're in the basement. Where do you start with hiring people, and what things should people be thinking about? Because I don't even know where to start. I really don't.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, you need to start with yourself and how you're going to get paid. Are you going to be a W-2 employee? Are you going to be paid on a K-1? So you need to, are you going to be not paid until the business starts making money? What are the plans for you and your partners, and how you'll be paid? So that's the first thing. And then when you need to bring on additional talent, most places will start with contractors. And if that's the case, I would suggest that you also get some help from a HR professional, because there's certain laws around hiring contractors, both on the federal and on the local level. Like, for example, here in Seattle, we have a law about contractors. And at some point, you're going to say, we need to hire people. We need to have full-time employees. So, there's a process you need to go through to plan, how many people we need, what kind of talent do we need, and how are we going to get that talent? And that's something that, again, a recruiter can help you with, the HR professional person can help you with. But it's probably, in most startup cases, it's going to be a little bit down the road until you get to that point where you start hiring people. At that point, there's a lot of things that come into play. There's, what do you do with personnel records? How do you set up an HR department? Hopefully you've already figured out how you're going to set up payroll. And payroll, there's plenty of payroll providers that can run payroll for you. So that's not something you have to do as an owner. But I think the most important thing is that you don't know what you don't know. And it's very tricky, I guess, or it's if you don't know much about employment law, the important thing is to find out, educate yourself a little bit on employment law and what you need to be compliant to local laws, state laws, and federal laws in this country, because it's very, very easy to misstep. And again, that's where an HR professional can help.
Good answer.
Nice.
I don't want to hog the conversation, but I have another question. I was wondering, so you also help companies with kind of their mission and their values and their brand and culture, right? And at what point should a startup really, I mean, you kind of have, your mission and your values, right? You should, right, as you begin. But at what point do you start to think about culture, and how would you start approaching that from an HR perspective?
For culture? Well, culture starts from day one, and it starts from the top down. So it's really important that when you're talking about your mission and vision, and when you start talking about your values, and I'd say none of those can be rushed. Those are processes that take a while and that morph and change over time. You also need to ask yourself, what kind of an company do we want to be known for as an employer? What kind of an employee experience do we want? And how do we want people within our company to work together? And put it on paper. Don't just let it happen. I mean, be intentional about it. So my advice would be, start talking about that right away. And put some, maybe part of your vision is the vision that you have as, what kind of employer you're going to be to the people who are working for you.
Great.
Good answer.
Really good. I kind of want to know, I mean, wild HR stories, right? I mean, I know that that's not necessarily anything to do with startup, but like, what's your craziest story? Like, do you have one that's just like maybe a don't do this, or a this is a common pitfall, or something, just something like that?
Some common pitfalls. I would say not setting out clear expectations with employees from the get-go, not having job descriptions, expecting employees to read your mind. This, it just, it doesn't happen. Being really ignorant of laws, especially around things like harassment, hostile work environment, things like that. And then there's just wage and hour laws. I mean, I've seen people, bring people on and try them out for a couple days with no pay. I mean, that's illegal. You have to pay people for any hour that they work, or misclassify people as exempt when they should be non-exempt. There's just a number of, like I said before, missteps that are really easy to take when you're just starting out. But how are you going to monitor your employees' work? How are you going to give feedback? What are your expectations? How often are you going to check in with your employer? You're going to hire all remote employees and then never talk to them except once every 3 months, or when the deadline's due on the project. Those are the kinds of things that get people in trouble. And I especially would say, when it comes to harassment and protected classes and discrimination, it's really important to understand all those things and what they mean from a legal standpoint and where the line is, because it's super easy unintentionally to misstep.
And I have a question.
Okay.
How important is a handbook? Do I need one right away, or when does a handbook come into play?
Good question. So you don't have to have a handbook. It's not like it's a legal requirement or anything.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah, but your handbook becomes your law at your company. So if you were ever sued and you were ended up in court, the attorneys are going to say, what does it say in your handbook? What is your policy? So I would say, when you have maybe 5 employees, you need to start putting together a handbook. We've got clients that have 1 or 2 employees and they put together a handbook. There's certain laws that have like posters and notifications that you have to give employees, which are just standard, and you need to provide those to employees upon hire. But there's a lot of unspoken things that aren't in the laws that are policy specific to your company that you can't expect people to know. It's better to put it in writing so you have something to fall back on. So I would say the earlier you can do it, the better. And sometimes what I've noticed with handbooks is policies aren't put into place until there's a gap that's noticed or until a problem comes up. And then an employer will say, oh my gosh, we don't have a policy for that. And now we've got this big problem. So let's put a policy in place. Again, I would just talk to, I would talk to HR professionals. I'd talk to you if you have a business mentor, like another CEO or startup founder who's been there, done there, been through it. They're also a really good resource to go, okay, what are some things I didn't know about or think about when I started this that came back to bite you, after you started hiring people?
Well, and that's a perfect segue into why we are doing our community, because that's what this is a place to tap into others, other peers, and also other professionals who may be able to give you some advice, just like the great advice you've been giving us here. I mean, it's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I'm kind of excited to end with the last question, Anne, that you always ask people, which is, what are they reading?
Yes. What are you reading?
Oh dear.
What's on your nightstand right now?
It's all fiction.
Sometimes that's the best way to get your mind off of everything. I love a good fiction book.
Exactly. But I would have to say, like, my standouts of what I've been read this year is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. I just think it's one of the best leadership management books that I've ever read. And there's a lot of good, meaty information in there that anyone in a leadership position can benefit from. I'm also a big fan of Adam Grant, and I listen to a lot of his podcasts. Simon Sinek's another one that's really good. So, that's what I'd say.
I still kind of want to know what your fiction is, but we can find out in the next episode.
Okay.
Find out what Heidi's reading. I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to chat with you. And I mean, as always, you're in the MaxQ community. You're in the group. So if anybody has questions, they can reach out to you after this, and reach out. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I welcome that, and would love to help anyone that needs a helping hand in the HR arena. So
great.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.